Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Front Page, a show brought to you by Cayuga Community College and shown on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as Win 89.1, the FM station for the college that plays these on Saturday mornings. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. This Thursday, March 14th, Cayuga County is seeking community input for plans for possible improvements at Emerson Park that is owned by Cayuga County, as they look at the park's master plan that was done in 2015. There are two sessions this Thursday, one at 1 p.m. and the other at 6:30. Among the issues that will be you'll be able to comment on will be pathways that they're proposing, as well as a new pedestrian bridge. In our studio today is Cayuga County Director of County Planning, Steve Lynch, and KIVA VANDERGEEST, who is new to the planning office, literally from December, to discuss this week's input sessions on Emerson Park and a couple of other items that their office is working on. Welcome back. Welcome to the new job.
Thank you.
So you've been on just 3 months?
Yep.
Where are you originally from?
Right before this, I was working in Rome, New York as a planner.
Okay. Well, welcome. We'll talk a little bit about you in a second, but I wanted, so as we're taping this today on Tuesday, this will also be played during the last session on Thursday night, so we have to take that in context, and I should have said that before. So you've got two public input sessions. When are they?
They are, one is at 1 in the afternoon, right? 1 in the afternoon, and one is at 6 p.m. at night, and both are over at the Pavilion at Emerson Park.
Okay, which makes it appropriate to be there. And are there presentations first that people will be here, or is it just input sessions?
I think there'll probably be an introduction by the team from Biederman Redevelopment Ventures, or BRV, and following that, they'll break out into groups and lead them through a series of sort of charrettes, what would you like to see kind of thing at the park.
So has anything been decided at this stage, or is it just county planning and the county as a whole is looking at priorities?
The county as a whole has a priority from the plan that says, let's program that park year-round if we can, but let's make it programming that's attractive to all ages, and let's make it program where we can activate that park. The more people that come in, then you could start getting concessions to come in, and so on. So it's really an open book right now.
So somewhat of a chicken and egg, what comes first to drive the other items?
Yes, but we think that the programming will drive people to come to the park. That's the idea, and that will help drive improvements to the park as well.
So your last plan, your master plan was done in 2015. Who did that?
The master plan was done by the planning department,
okay,
working with the community, and since then we've hired an architect of record for the park, sort of a master contract with one architect so that we can have consistency through the years as we design projects. That's Trowbridge and Wolf Michaels Architecture, landscape architecture, out of Ithaca. And this is the first time that we've hired a programming firm, Biederman Redevelopment Ventures.
So they have done Bryant Park, which is in New York City, which I would tell you that is sometimes more fun than Central Park. It's right behind the New York Public Library. It has all types of programming there. Is that one of the reasons you picked them? They have everything from ice skating in the winter and concerts and movies, fairs, and those are only the weekends I've been there.
Biederman is not a design firm. They are a firm that specializes in managing and programming public spaces. They've done business improvement districts a lot, which is a lot like programming for a park. But they literally, the staff that's coming up and working with us, half the time they're programming parks and working at parks. Biederman also manages parks.
So would you eventually see them as possibly managing Emerson Park?
I don't think so, but I think their expertise in managing parks in other areas brings a lot to the table as far as knowing not how to invest heavily in capital items that are really expensive, but to do a lot of good things that are happening on a daily basis that people of all ages can enjoy.
So before getting into what you may have planned and going back to the 2015 Minister, I want to stay on Biederman for a second. What are you seeking them to come up with when you say programming? Give me an example of what a program would be.
So they will look at the whole park, they'll look at the demographics of the community, they'll use these public input sessions to start to identify the people that they're likely to draw to the park and what those people will like to do at the park.
So you're looking at year-round park programming at this
I
time.
hope so. I mean, we all know that Emerson Park can get pretty cold in the winter time with the wind coming off of Owasco Lake on the shoreline there, but for the most part, yeah, four seasons.
So do you consider Emerson Park a 3-season park now? What do you consider it?
You're going to get me in trouble, Guy. It's a 4-season park.
No. But the practicality is that while you have some things in the spring, a lot of it driven by the pavilion and usage there, you've got the merry-go-round that doesn't really start until late April, May. They end in October, November. You got a couple of events in December. That's 3.
Right now, it's a 3-season park.
So your hope would be there'll be other items there.
Yeah.
You were nice enough to send a lot of information, which I appreciate. But one of the pieces that you had said was to make it similar or to complement what the city currently does, I'm assuming in their active and passive parks, and what's going on downtown. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we're not a big population area, but if you could think of Auburn and downtown as being the urban counterpart to a natural setting like Emerson Park, where people can enjoy the park during the day and then go downtown at night, or vice versa, be in town at the historic sites and so on during the day, the new Eco Rights Heritage Center during the day, and then come out and see a concert at the park in the evening, or stroll around the park if there was nice lighted pathways and activities.
So could you see concerts and, say, movies similar to what goes on at Hoops Park? And I know the city just announced recently they're going to do some downtown movies back again, which they did in the 90s. Is that something that is on the table as a possible option? Absolutely,
all of those things. And KIVA, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on in the parks that Biederman have designed that never occurred to us when we look at their programming that they've done in other places.
They have a lot of different activities that they bring in from partners, so they'll have a library cart with a lot of books and things, and they'll have a kid's story time. They have a game cart, so they'll bring in board games and chess sets and decks of cards, and they'll set up a area for kids and adults too to start some games with people that they don't even know. So it's nice to have that opportunity so you can play with your family, but then if someone's sitting there at a chess table, you can go and introduce yourself and play a game. So they've been able to kind of incorporate some of these things that we don't have here.
So I was down at Bryant. I don't mean to capitalize on Bryant, but it sounds like they help manage Bryant. Am I correct
yes,
on that?
Yes, they do,
okay.
yeah.
So they have the game cart there. So it's very cool, and there's everything from Connect 4 to games that I don't really understand, but kids will play them. So literally, it's a driver to bring people in there, whether they want to go down to the beach or just be up in the green spaces. Is that?
Yeah, it also helps with some of the local organizations because they give them a platform and an opportunity to showcase. One of their other examples was a local artist at Bryant Park who came and just painted. And so they said to the person, all right, well, if we can make a habit of this, if you can come here every day and paint, we'll try to organize some activities around you, and then you can sell your paintings, and we'll make sure that the people are coming here and having a great time. And so it's a nice opportunity to partner with everyone in the community.
So the luxury that Bryant Park has that you don't have right now is they have, if I'm counting correctly, 4 concession booths there, besides once you cross the street and there's all types of restaurants and fast foods and donut places around there. What is concessions now at the park, or is there no concessions for somebody who hasn't been up to the park recently, other than if you go to the merry-go-round, you can buy a candy bar during intermission?
That's it. You can go to the mobile station next to the park.
Okay. So literally it is a food desert.
And get bait.
Okay. Okay. Get your coins and...
But, you know, Green Shutters is right there, but we really want to bring in activity to the park which will drive concessions, and I think that that's important. The master plan, really looking long-term, thought that a public-private partnership with some sort of a casual restaurant in the park That's included in the master plan. There's no movement towards that right now, first things first. But
so you're skipping way ahead of me, so let's go there for a second. Are there any plans right now for the pavilion? Is the pavilion part of the discussion on Thursday?
I think the pavilion is part of the discussion as far as to the extent that the pavilion is under contract and it might be available. For example, in the wintertime, there's very little weddings that go on in the pavilion. And when we brought Biederman over to the park in the snow and the wind during the day, we took them into the pavilion and they said, this is a great space and this is not even activated. As a matter of fact, we also took them into the merry-go-round theater, which they thought was completely unique and beautiful, which it is. And you know, the theater in the wintertime, they've got the plastic over all the seats, and they looked at it and they said, gee, would the merry-go-round be open to, this would be a great place, for example, bluegrass concerts or some good folk music or even some classical music. Why couldn't this be used in the wintertime?
So there was talk, and I'm trying to think, H&J, which is the contract with the pavilion, this is their 4th year, 5th year?
This is their, I'm going to guess, I'm thinking it's the 3rd year out of 4 years.
Okay.
And so I think we have to start looking at re-upping their contract or circulating a new RF. Or
but that becomes its own difficulty in the sense that if you're a bride and you want to do a wedding in 2020 or 2021, you book now.
You have to decide 2 years out from the end of a contract with anybody doing that.
And so that's something that will be, is that something that would come under your office? Does that come under the county as a whole?
It comes out, well, it would come under Parks and Recreation, but typically it's the legislature, you know, making the decision on that.
So, go ahead.
As far as the concessions for the programming goes, the stuff at Bryant Park was designed by Biederman. Okay. A lot of the concession stands there was their kind of brainchild, and they put that together.
Okay.
And so I think for what we're doing, we would obviously wait until we hear from the public on Thursday to see what kind of ideas they have and what trends they're looking for, and then hear some recommendations from Biederman as far as what they would find interesting for that park.
So when I got up this morning, I thought, what am I living in Central New York for again? Because it was snowing. But with that being said, there are a lot of people who do winter sports. There used to be a great race up at Emerson Park, and one of the things that was up there was snowshoeing. Is somebody like Biederman looking to say, okay, we can find a vendor who can go and do a snowshoeing day or cross-country skiing? Or are you looking much smaller than that?
I think we're open to it all.
Yeah, that's part of what we're looking for. There's a fine line that we've sort of been talking about with them, where we don't want to provide people with too many ideas because we don't want to sway them, but we also want to be able to have the discussion to see what they're interested in having. And I know that snowshoeing and some skiing, cross-country skiing things have been on the table. We're just a little hesitant as how to bring it up so that we're not telling people that that's what's going to be there, because we really want to hear from people to know that that's what they want there.
Yeah, I don't even know how long the winter great race has not been in, it's been most likely decades now. Yeah. So let's go back, sorry, we jumped way ahead. Let's jump a little bit back. Master plan in 2015, what were the overarching themes from back then? Is it what we're talking about right now, looking at these private-public partnerships, looking at year-round planning and programming?
That was a key element. Priority element was programming leading to concessions and the availability of food to help drive programming. Right. Keeping somewhat, there was no design goals, it was overarching. Keeping the sense of a natural feel and keeping the view sheds open, so not filling up the park with so many buildings or anything that you block the view of the water, and really supporting some of the things that are already in the park.
Some things you can't do because of state historic resources.
Yes, there are some things that types of things that you. It's not necessarily things you can't do, but there's buildings and things like that they would have control over if you put up. So have you been implementing pieces of the 2015 plan, or is this the first big piece right now? No, actually, there are two things that have been implemented since the 2015 plan. One is the redevelopment of the public dock, the public put in over right near White Bridge Road. Okay. And this, we're in the design stages now for the first phase of a pedestrian, bicycle, and pathway system throughout the park. We're going to focus on Deauville Island.
Okay.
And that's going to include a pedestrian bridge that will go from White Bridge Road, or the area next to White Bridge Road, over onto the island. So you know that path that snakes underneath White Bridge Road, under the bridge, and goes right up behind the high school? So now you'll be able to, if you were in the high school and you went down along the river.
So it's not crossing the outlet, it is crossing White Bridge.
No, it's crossing the channel that goes around Deauville.
Oh, just the channel, okay.
Yeah, over sort of near closer to the gas station.
Okay.
So
if I want my bait.
Right, if you want your bait.
I'm not going to let you get over that. So where are the pathways going?
They're really on Deauville Island, but eventually they'll be throughout the whole park. It's a very large park, and being able to knit it together with pedestrian paths that you could rollerblade on, you could have, if you had a stroller with you, if you were in a wheelchair, if you're on a bike,
so ADA
if you were
accessible
jogging, completely, yeah.
So will you be able to get to the high school?
Yes.
You will. So that's part of the.
So you would go. You would be able to go from Deauville over a pedestrian bridge, underneath the bridge at White Bridge, and walk along the path right up to the high school without ever crossing a road.
And when will some of those paths be constructed?
We're going to go out to bid in about 30 days. Try to get a good bid price. And
so you don't have a cost at this stage?
We have a budget, but we don't have a cost.
What's your budget roughly?
The budget is roughly $450,000, I think, something like that.
Is this something you would bond for then?
No. We put in a consolidated funding application grant. The Emerson Foundation gave us some matching funds. The legislature matched those funds, and we're able to get a $468,000 grant, I think it was, from the state. And so we're going to go out to bid, and then the construction will be after all the events of the summer, you know, at the end of August.
So really, for people who want to activate it, it will either be in the fall of 19 or most likely in 20.
No, it'll be the pathways and the bridge will go in 19.
Oh, okay.
In the fall.
But you won't be able to use them this summer.
No.
Okay.
No.
So you've been with the planning office. I just want to turn to you for a second about a couple things. You've been with the planning office since December. You said you came from Rome. What were you doing there?
I was a city planner with the City Planning and Economic Development Office.
How long have you been in the planning field?
About 4 years.
Where'd you go to school?
SUNY ESF.
Oh, really?
Yep. Landscape architecture.
Where'd you go to school? Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to answer that question. Proud
alumni.
Proud alumni. That's okay. That's where we get good people from. So, where did you originally grow up?
In Wisconsin.
Okay, so.
Yeah. We still have snow. It's just as cold.
Okay. How did you end up in Central New York?
I went to Syracuse University for a little bit.
Okay.
And I just really like the area. I don't really know what it is. I can't explain it, but it's just a nice place to be.
Got you. So there are always lots of questions about the park. The one that I got an email from is, will there be, are any of your plans to put a rocket slide back at Emerson Park?
If people want a rocket slide, there will be a rocket slide. Actually, when we made the pitch in the CFA...
And I am serious, we get that question quite often.
I know, we actually selected, when we made our pitch for the funding, we included photos of the rocket slide. One of the great things that the staff did when we were working on the plans for the playground, which we're going to be doing a destination playground as well, on Deauville Island.
So when you say destination playground, can you explain what that is?
It means you would come from over 5,000 miles away to go to that playground. I'm just kidding.
Okay, 5 miles?
Yeah, you would you would get in your car and you would drive to go to that playground because it has different things than other playgrounds. So we're looking at that. I mean, so there'll be some typical
to what
things,
is out by Allen Arena, where people go out there, or even in the town of Wasco.
Yeah.
By the town hall, there are places in Camillus. Does that mean that you would do a spray park, or is this you're looking more activity-wise?
We're probably looking more activity-wise. I mean, everybody has a budget. However, we whether we do a destination playground and we do it in phases where we have a grand plan for what it could be and install it in phases and try to do some fundraising for it is one approach. I think it's important to note that we're going to relocate, this is in the master plan, relocate the playground from being next to Route 38A near the entrance to the park, bring it over to Deauville Island where it's closer to the bathrooms, closer to the beach, and it's kind of more of a contained area as far as an activity area.
So you see a shift on it. Do you see other structures other than playground type equipment on Deauville? I know everybody harks back, I do not remember it, harks back to the hotel there. Are you looking at large structures on there, or are you looking at just a very active park?
I think we're looking more at an active park. There's a large pavilion structure out there that looks like the back of a great blue whale. Mm-hmm. In other words, the roof is not in great shape. That's going to come down at some point, maybe not this summer. But at some point that's going to come down. So there'll probably be a new pavilion put up, maybe not there, maybe somewhere else. Ultimately, we're looking at, is there a way to create sort of an intimate concert space that might have the lake as a backdrop where you know, modest music events can take place, sort of like the blues and barbecue
that they have up there. Your office is working on a number of other things as well. How many parks does the county have?
The county has 2 main parks. They used to have 3 where they had West Barrier Beach up in Fairhaven, and that was transferred over to the town of Fairhaven.
So you have Sterling Nature Center. What's your office doing up there or on that project?
So our office really helps the Parks Department, you know, with the planning and the grant administration and getting the grants for these parks. So we don't make the decisions on the parks, we're sort of a facilitator. But one thing that's great about Sterling is the Friends of Sterling Nature Center have funded a redesign of a nature center up there. If you've ever been there, the nature center up in Sterling is an old farmhouse that was there long before it was a county park, and it's you know, it's in need of repair, and it's not really adequate to, you know, host a lot of events and things like that. So we've worked with Beardsley Design Associates, and we're coming up with schematic plans that'll be presented this month to the Parks Commission. And that's going to come along with some high-level cost estimates. So we have a budget, and we're going to look at activating that space. And that's some really exciting designs, by the way.
So speaking of when you do this presentation on Thursday, what's the next step after that?
Well, what'll come out of Biederman's, you know, when they take all this information and they collect all this data and they reach out, we're going to have stakeholder meetings in between the public meetings.
As a stakeholder? I wanted to ask that question as well.
Sure. Stakeholders, there's many. There's people that have events in the park. So the Little League Baseball is a stakeholder, Merry-Go-Round Theater, of course, and H&J and Owasco Paddles and so on and so forth. They're all stakeholders, but so are the people that do the Great Race, the people that do the barbecue. And then there's other stakeholders that aren't stakeholders yet, but are cultural, you know, institutions and things like that.
So you'll be doing outreach to them?
Absolutely, we have.
And so, go ahead.
Some of that will come after the meeting on Thursday. Once we start to identify different kinds of programming that's wanted there, then we can start reaching out and making more stakeholder connections.
And when do you see those? When do you see Biederman having your next iteration of their report to you?
Oh, I think in June, probably.
Yeah.
And then when will stakeholder meetings occur over the summer, into the fall, or quicker than that?
There'll probably be some more engagement in the summertime, you know, or early summer, I would probably say. And then we're looking at wrapping this up by August.
Okay. I'm going to go into other subjects, but we'd love to have you and back, as well as Biederman, if you have a representative there, talk about what was.
Yeah.
What came up. I know your office is doing 2 other things. I think we'll get to one of them right now. Village of Union Springs, we want to be inclusive of the county. Yeah. We've hit North and Central. What are you doing on Union Springs?
Our senior planner, Carrie Terwilliger, has been working with Union Springs. They've adopted her, I think, She's been working with them. She got a grant to do a local waterfront revitalization plan. LWRP is what we call it. But it's really an opportunity to look at the waterfront and how we're going to redevelop it.
And does that mean going out and helping them raise money, find funds, find grants?
Yes, it's all of those things. Usually when the Department of State that funds the initial planning set program, it usually includes capital improvements such as docks and different things that'll be on the lakeshore and Cayuga Lake. And we weren't even finished with the first plan yet, and we were putting in CFA applications with Union Springs.
And these consolidated financial applications are sometimes awarded in December. The governor does these regions.
That's exactly those.
And have they been successful before?
Yes, they've actually got grants to improve the public boat docks down at Frontenac Park, which is right on Cayuga Lake.
And then you're also doing some work for Fairhaven and Sterling as well?
We hope to. We've sent our staff up there. KIVA joined Carrie up there, and they made presentations to the Town of Sterling Town Board and the Fairhaven Village Board and said, we will write the grant for you. If we get the grant, we will do the plan. And usually—
And that is to put in another
local waterfront revitalization plan.
Okay.
Except for up there, of course it'll include all the things it usually does, but it'll probably look a little bit more at resiliency issues and flooding and those types of things.
One of the great things about a LWRP is not just that it gives you the opportunity to apply for all these other grants, but that it sort of codifies and solidifies what your community wants to do. And then if some other organization, like a federal or state agency, comes in to do some work, like some road work or dredging or whatever, they need to follow your plan.
Okay, so you develop it as it goes along.
Right, and so the community gets to say how that kind of stuff will be done once more work starts to happen there.
So again, if you're watching this on Thursday, you have 30 minutes to get to the Emerson Park. Put your DVR on and go up. But the sessions are when again on Thursday?
The first session is at 1 o'clock till 2:30, and the second session is at 6:30 till 8.
And so initial presentation, and then you're going to have some work groups, but people can speak and give their 2 cents on what they want.
I think it'll be a real comfortable, open, and in a way fun setting.
Who do you hope goes?
I hope a whole range of people go. I hope we can get some young people there. We've done some outreach to the schools. I hope that we can get millennials there. I hope that we can get the senior citizens there. I hope we get more than the people that are already invested in the park. People that say, well, let's go see what they're going to do in the lake.
And I know your office is also working on watershed rules. We had Dr. Adam Effel on last week. We'll most likely bring it all back in because I know you're in that process. Yeah. You're going to City Hall in 2 weeks on that?
Yep, on the 28th at 6 p.m. There's a joint session scheduled for the town of Owasco and the city of Auburn as the water purveyors, the people that sell water out of the lake. The watershed rules and regulations are done on their behalf. And so it's kind of a kickoff to the public participation stage.
And that will go for how many more months from there?
We're thinking it's going to bring us through July and August, probably.
Okay. Well, we do want to thank you both for coming on and agreeing to talk about what's going on in Emerson Park and tell us what is going on Thursday. And again, those sessions are at 1. And is it 6 p.m. or 6:30?
6 p.m.
6:30.
6:30 at Emerson Park Pavilion.
We have our notes.
Where you can give your thoughts about what is going on at Emerson Park. And we do want to thank County Planning Director Steve Lynch and Planner KIVA VANDERGEEST for joining us today to talk about this, and hope they'll come back in a couple of months to give us an update of what has been proposed and how they will implement it all. Just a quick programming note, the college is off starting this coming Friday. We'll return back here on April 2nd after the spring break for our students. Before we go though, we would like to let you know that we'd love to have your questions or thoughts for future guests. You can contact us at Inside Government or be on the front page. You can send the emails to cozguytho@aol.com or Inside Government or be on the front page, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. I want to thank you for watching. Hope you have a good night, have a great tomorrow, and we will see you in just a couple of weeks.